Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. Aristotle is going to finish up his investigations and on interpretation in chapter 14 by focusing on one particular question which must have raised a lot of issues for people at the time. And it can be framed like this: with contraries, enantia, right? Is an affirmation contrary to a denial or to another affirmation? And we could frame it like this: which of these, a denial or an affirmation, is actually the contrary to an affirmation? And so he'll give you an example of this, actually a few examples. Every man is just, right? What is the contrary to it? No man is just. That's certainly what we would typically call its contrary. Or should it be an affirmation? Every man is unjust, the opposite of just. Both of them seem to have a good claim when we, throw them out as possibilities. And so Aristotle is going to make a big assumption here, which, follows through his works in general. We can say that if indeed language, or what we do in language, in phone, follows what we do in thought, in dianoia, then certain things are going to follow. So if we assume that a judgment is contrary to a judgment asserting the contrary, right? Judging that every man is just is to judging every man is unjust, then the same thing would hold of our verbal propositions as well. But if we suppose that the judgment asserting the contrary is not in the mind of the speaker the contrary one to another, then the affirmations won't be contrary. The negation then would be the true contrary. And so he says, well, which of the true judgments is the contrary one to the false? Is it one that denies the false judgment, or the one that pronounces the contrary to it? And so he says, let's take, for example, 3 judgments concerning a thing that is good. A true judgment, it is good. A false judgment, it is not good. A third, quite distinct, it is bad. Of these other 2, it is not good or it is bad, which is really the contrary to the first judgment, right? And so he says, well, we're going to bring up 2 odd issues here that are a little bit of digression, but are worth looking into. He says, if you're going to say that contrary judgments are those that have contrary subjects, that is going to get you into trouble. Now, what does that mean? So, contrary subjects would be things like, good, not good, right? The judgment that a good thing is good, the judgment that a bad thing is bad, could possibly be one and the same. They're both of them true, but the subjects are actually contrary here. Good thing, bad thing. And he says what constitutes judgments is actually contrary is having 2 different senses, 2 different meanings, rather than 2 contrary subjects, right? So that's not really going to be that much of an issue. Also, he says, if we have 2 opinions regarding a thing that's good, one opining that the thing is good, the other that it's not, and there's other qualities that are not inherent nor could be inherent in good, then we don't have to take any opinion for the contrary one to the true that opines that some quality inheres, even though it doesn't inhere. And inheres is a translation of is present in or with. And he says, we should just call contrary to the true ones judgments in which there's error. And these have to do with things like coming to be, right? So this is a bit of a blind alley that we don't have to worry that much about. And then he comes back to more logical considerations. So he's going to say, all right, so what is good is indeed good, right? And it's also not bad. Now, are they good and not bad in exactly the same way? Here's where Aristotle's making a big metaphysical commitment. The good is good, and that's the case by what's translated here as by essence or essentially, kath'heato, in accordance with the thing as it is. The good is what is good, right? It's the essence of it. It's also not bad, but it's not bad, as he's going to say, accidentally, kata sumbebēkos, not in accordance with what it actually is. It just happens to also be not bad. So he says, okay, now, if we assume that the judgment is truest, or the thing is the most true, that deals with the thing's actual essence, then we're also going to get that the thing is most false, or literally more true, more false, that is going to get the essence wrong. So he says a false judgment dealing with essence would be this: that which is good is not good. It is bad, though a false judgment concerns what is accidental. So here Aristotle is making recourse to a conception of truth where some things can be more true and other things can be less true, which I think most people would be willing to buy, although some theories of truth don't actually allow for that. Now, what is that going to mean? Well, then the thing that is by essence is going to be more true. The thing that contradicts it or is contrary to it, by essence, is going to be the real contrary in this case. He also says something else quite interesting here. Contraries, the enantia, differ the most from each other, but then he brings in contradictories. He's going to say, what is contradictory? The things that are literally said in opposition to each other, right? He tes antiphaseios, are more contrary enantiotera to each other, right? So he's saying, listen, contraries to begin with are already really different from each other. And then if they're actual contradictories, even more opposed, even more contrary to each other. So he says, supposing one of two judgments is contrary to that which is true, but that which is contradictory is even more contrary, then the latter, that is, the contradictory, must be the real contrary. To judge a good thing as bad is a composite judgment, right? And so he says, and then there's a whole discussion here about contradictory judgments that's a little bit confused, particularly in the translation. But the upshot of it is we're going more wrong when we assert something to be the case that is of the essence of the thing, and we're getting it wrong, right? So if we're looking for the real contrary, it's going to be the denial, not the, we might say, opposed affirmation. So he goes on and he says, we can say this with, parallel judgments about what is not good. To say what is not good is similar to saying that a good thing is good. And what would its contrary be? right? He says, if what is not good is true, that doesn't mean that it's actually bad. That could be true. Some things that are not good are bad. So both together could be true. But some things that are not good could also just be not good and not necessarily bad. So that's an interesting point of view that he's taking on there. Then he's going to talk about making the affirmation universal, and he's going to say, well, that doesn't change anything here. So we started out with, every man is just. Then we started shifting to indefinite things like, the good or what is good, right? And not simply bad or not bad, right? And he says, what if we want to make the affirmation universal? Well, it's not going to change anything. The contrary is going to be the universal negation. So if a person judges everything that is good to be good, there's a universal statement. The contrary is judging that nothing of that kind is good, which is false. It would be saying no good thing is good. And he says, judging what is good to be a good, if the subject is taken universally, amounts to a judgment, pronouncing whatever is good to be good, and the latter in turn to a judgment, pronouncing good, everything good. The same would be the case for the not good. And so he's going to finish up here by saying, if this is the case with our judgments and verbal affirmations, and denials are symbols, symbola, right, of what is in our mind, well, then it's clear that the universal denial, when the subject is one and the same, is the positive statement's true contrary. So that provides us with a resolution to this issue. And the last thing that he's going to say, which is quite interesting, is that if we have two things that are true, because he doesn't actually say true statements in this, it's rather in the Greek, aleithei, with one sense of the term, aleithei in the dative, uk endeketai anantian enai. Now, uk endeketai cannot accept being opposed to each other, whether it is in thought, uta doxon, or in terms of denial, anti-phasin. So, true things can't actually not just contradict each other, but even be contrary to each other. So this resolves the issue. It's the negative rather than the opposed positive that we take as the opposite, the contrary, the more contrary for an affirmation.